The Narendra Modi government has opened the purse strings in the election year. The Finance Minister Piyush Goyal today presented an interim budget that has given many sobs to the middle class as well as the farmers, and there will be no income tax up to 5 lakh rupees. Now, this is going to be benefiting about 3 crore taxpayers with a focus on agrarian distress. A basic annual income of 6,000 rupees has also been announced for farmers who own less than 2 acres. This particular scheme will also be benefiting 12 crore farmers, while the standard deduction limit has also been raised to 50,000 rupees. Gratuity limit has been revised to 20 lakh rupees. Taking into consideration the vulnerable working class, as PM pension scheme has been announced to cover 10 crore workers in the unorganized sector. In a huge boost coming in to small and medium enterprises, 2% relief has also been announced. The other big announcements, of course, include a crop insurance scheme. They've got the doubling of food subsidies as well, 8 crore free LPG connections, and the defense budget has been raised to 3 lakh crore rupees. With me in the studio now is Rajeev Dubey of Business Today to dissect what the new tax implication means really for the Aam Aadmi. Rajeev, the biggest takeaway, of course, has been the fact that up to 5 lakh rupees there is going to be a tax rebate which is coming in as a huge relief for the middle class as well. But Absolutely. There was a bit of a disappointment there on the brackets which are above that. They were kind of expecting some sort of a...
They were expecting something, and apart from that there was another expectation which had built up over the last 1 month or so when these things started leaking, is that that the minimum exemption limit will go up from 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh. That is not the case. I think that's something that needs to be clarified. That earlier you were not taxed up to 3.5 lakh rupees. Up to 3.5 lakh rupees you were taxed 2,500 rupees, and government gave a rebate of 2,500 rupees. So it was net to you.
Correct.
Now that thing has moved to 5 lakh rupees. So 3.5 lakh rupees to 5 lakh rupees.
Correct.
So that's a benefit of almost 10,400 rupees for anybody who's earning up to 5 lakh rupees, and anybody who's earning up to 4 lakh rupees, he benefits something like 5,200 rupees per annum. Anybody above that, it does not benefit from this. So this is only for people who are earning up to 5 lakh rupees per annum. If you're earning 5 lakh 1 rupees, you are taxed up to by your regular slabs. Besides this, what the finance minister has announced is, of course, 2 very interesting things that the common taxpayer has been asking for a while. One was the exemption, one was the increase in the TDS limit, where you are taxed when you pay for rent that you pay. So that has been raised from 1.8 lakh to 2.4 lakh, and the most interesting thing that he has done is to give a relief for to the taxpayer, that he will not pay a penny more on tax on a second home. This is something that has been a big demand.
Absolute exemption on tax for the second occupied house, not for the first occupied house. That's been
for both now.
For both now. Yeah. All right.
So it was allowed up to for the first house, it was not allowed for the second house. There was a time when you could take as many exemptions on multiple houses you owned. So there were people who actually took 2-3 loans just to take the tax benefit. That was stopped a couple of years ago. It has been brought back. So now you can take exemption for 2 houses.
Now, that's very interesting. Also, what the other part is that last year we saw that standard deduction limit increase. Correct. And now this year again, from 40,000, they've brought it up to 50,000. So that 10,000, do you think that makes much of a difference?
So, what happened last year was, interestingly, last year even though the standard deduction was brought back, it actually netted a lot of other things that were there. So real benefit was only about 1,500 or 1,200 or 1,500 rupees. So there was a lot of criticism of that move, saying that it was more like a jumla than anything else. So I think the finance minister has taken note of that, and raising it to from 40 to 50, 10,000 rupees is a direct benefit now.
Absolutely. Also, within 2 years, tax assessment will be done electronically, but electronically is something that we've always seen the tax assessments being done. Correct. But IT returns processing in just about 24 hours. Do you give that a big thumbs up? That's a very good move. That's a very good move, because often,
you would send your return, and then you would wait for sometimes up to 3 months to 6 months at times, wherever the government sometimes didn't have the kind of resources, and they delayed the payouts. So, the return you had to wait for almost up to 6 months at times. And if they are going to be processing it in 24 hours, you assume that they will also be paying back. That the trick in this is whether they will be actually paying back the return whatever is due to the assessee.
And absolutely, and also the custom duty has been abolished from 36 capital goods, and that's a big thumbs up as far as the Indian
that he was referring to what he has been doing over a period of time.
Yes.
So it is something that has already been there.
And, you know, we were talking about houses as well. There has been a recommendation to the GST Council for reducing GST rates for home buyers as well. Yes. So, if you could just elaborate a little further on that and how soon you see that happening.
Yeah, so earlier, you know, that's something that the GST Council will take, and that's a recommendation that the centre has already made. There's a committee that is set up for that. The home buyers were taxed when the project was under construction. Now they will, you know, the proposal is that it should be reconsidered whether they should be charged GST at all or not.
This time around, you know, as far as the budget was concerned, we saw a lot of expenditure being announced by the finance minister when it came to the agrarian crisis, tackling the agrarian crisis. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of critiques have said, where is all of this revenue going to come from? Is the government really dependent on the direct and indirect tax collections alone? You know,
interestingly, if you look at the original proposal that had gone to the finance ministry, it would have been an even bigger hit on the exchequer. So the government has been very clever in saying that you are you know, taking baby steps towards universal basic income. The DBT is something of that nature. But if you look at the original proposal, that would have cost the centre something like 2 lakh crore. You know, that proposal was 4,000 rupees per acre. Here the centre is giving 6,000 rupees per annum for 5 acres. So that proposal was 4,000 rupees an acre per crop season, capped at 10,000 rupees. It would have been a 2 lakh crore, you know, hit on the exchequer. Here, the difference one needs to understand is that would have absorbed the fertilizer subsidy. Here, the government is saying you continue with your fertilizer subsidy, you continue with your irrigation benefits, you continue with your Manrega, and this is over and above something that I am giving. So this needs to be understood that if that other proposal had gone through, that would have absorbed a lot of these subsidies and a lot of these other schemes. In this case, those schemes continue, and the government is giving 75,000 crore out of its own pocket to the farmer. So it's not a small thing. The only thing is that the landless farmers are going to be disappointed because this does not cover landless
Absolutely. You know, I was going to come to that, but before that as well, so that means that indirect and direct tax collection is something that the government is going to be capitalizing very heavily on. So what happens to the fiscal deficit targets then?
So it's very interesting that while, you know, everybody was expecting the fiscal deficit to go beyond 3.5%, the finance minister surprised everybody by announcing that he's going to stick to 3.4%. Which has breached the 3.3% target, but it's still not so bad. But right after the budget presentation, the former finance minister P. Chidambaram came over, you know, came on and said that he has actually noticed that some of these announcements have been made post the, you know, budget numbers had been prepared. So we will have to go through those numbers and see whether the actual fiscal deficit is going to be way higher, and if there is off-budget financing as well. Because off-budget financing of almost 1 lakh crore is something that has been expected by the economists for a while now.
You know, so let's talk about the Aam Aadmi now. The Aam Aadmi, when it comes down to the least common denominator, to break down for our viewers, does he ultimately stand to benefit from this interim budget as far as taxation is concerned, or it is all the same as just the below 5 lakh bracket that stands to benefit?
I think Aam Aadmi does benefit because by and large, if you look at it, there is the work that the finance minister has done in terms of tinkering the exemption limit of housing loans, on the TDS on rent. All these things will make a significant, you know, will bring in more cash into the hands of the middle class. Also, remember, this will be a huge boost for the rural community because 75,000 crore going into the rural community will actually lead to demand growing in some of those some of these areas. Particularly, it impacts the FMCG sector because small sachets of FMCG products tend to benefit significantly. It has been noticed that whenever there's money pumped into the rural sector, the FMCG industry does benefit out of it.
As far as corporate taxation is concerned, do you see any respite coming in there? Because there was some 5% decrease as well, from 30% to 25%.
That was proposed. That was proposed, and last year, what the finance minister had done, year before, in fact, he had reduced it for companies up to 250 crore income. They had reduced the tax from 30% to 25%.
Right.
That has not been extended to the rest of the companies.
Right. So net, big thumbs up for this budget from your side, or
I
would
think
you
so.
say
I
this?
think by and large, anything which is leaving more hands, more money in the hands of the common man, even if it's small money, does lead to greater demand in the economy.
You know, the budget does end up giving a huge relief on the income tax front, but there's a catch. The catch is that there's been no change in the slabs whatsoever. Somewhere, were you also expecting those changes to come in as far as the slabs are concerned? I was.
Almost everybody expected this 2.5 lakh slab to go to 3 lakh,
yeah.
and that the finance minister has chosen not to do. So
right.
I think that was one surprise, because that was expected. But other than that, the loan thing has been the interest on the second house being exempt. All that were expected, were being demanded, and he seems to have agreed with this.
All right. Thank you so much, Rajeev, for joining us with all of that. That was Rajeev Dubey, the managing editor of Business Today, breaking down what the new tax structure means for you and me. Whether this has been a disappointment or not, he says, well, it's not such a great news, but it's not bad news either.